There's this famous British Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, who said, a week is a long time in politics. You presented a budget just about 3 weeks ago, and it looks to many of us that probably so much has happened since that presentation of the budget. One thought that comes to my mind, and I would like to sort of quiz you on that. Are there any policy buttons that still remain to be pressed to further the growth aspirations and structural economic problems that you yourself outlined in the budget and wanted to address? Are there any other policy buttons that you have in mind which you need to press going forward?
Well, not that appears to me now at this stage, because even those major reform measures that we announced still have some way to go, and we have to, only after the 1st of April, assuming the budget gets cleared, finance bill gets cleared, we'll have to start moving at a very quick and speedy pace. So the steps that we've taken for promotion of exports, steps that we've taken to regard and respect the taxpayers, steps that we've taken in terms of the income tax simplification, customs notifications have come for reset of customs and the duties that prevail. So very many reforms have been mentioned, and I would think at this stage I'd like them to roll out quickly. And the pet question which media normally asks me about, all right, you've always been speaking about disinvestment, what is happening on that. I'm sure you're reporting on very many things which have started moving at a pace which is only good. So we are at it at this stage. I wouldn't think at the moment I would add anything more to what is there in the budget itself. Okay.
No, I understand. We'll come to that a little later, specifically on the customs tariff thing. There is this view among economists who believe that India's growth story they use the term normalized in a post-COVID. There was a post-COVID bump, understandable, and we were growing at a rapid pace, and now it seems it is normalizing to its potential as such. Is that also your view, that it is normalizing, number one? Number two, going forward, what do you see as the major growth drivers for the Indian economy? You talked about technology, you talked about talent. Which are the sectors that you think can probably give the push to the economy in terms of the growth path at a time when there is a kind of a normalization of that growth path?
I'm tempted to be a bit cynical on this question.
Sure.
See, it's one thing when you're watching a cricket match. I'm not very good at cricket, but still I want to take this example. When you're watching a cricket match and you listen to the running commentary, that moment, the tension which piles up because he's not taking the run that he should, which is possible from a television screen, yes. But for a batsman, he knows whether he can or not. But if you look at the over at the end of the 6 balls, or when you look at the, when the change of the bowler happens, you look at what happened in the last over, you get a picture of, oh, right.
Okay.
So my point is, it's possibly right if you say, oh, it's normalizing, growth is normalizing. It's like a running commentary during a match. This particular quarter, this particular ball of the 6 balls has not been effective, is like saying this particular quarter, I'm sorry, you've gone down. Can I deny that? No. But is that the end of the story? No. So I think we need to have a bit more readiness to hear that, but at the same time, look at the overall picture. India, against all the odds, against all the challenges globally, is keeping up pace with its growth. Yes, it can dip a bit, it can rise a bit, but we are the only ones in the last 4 years clearly showing that our growth momentum is there and continues to be there. One notch more, one notch. All right, we can always have that conversation. But we are the only ones. And therefore for India, again, therefore for India, we need to have a lot more, the positive conversations more often heard, because the contagion of the cynicism can be very, very impactful on the economy. Cynicism or what you call the sentiment is one thing when you're talking about the markets. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about the economy and belief in our fundamentals. I think it is important. It may have normalized, using your expression, but I think it is showing repeated signs of coming up. I was looking at a graph which was showing as to what happened in the UK economy since after the global financial crisis. Was the expected trajectory at all reached? And then after 2020, was the expected trajectory at all reached? And after that, now, is it picking up or not? When you look at that graph, and if you can superimpose the Indian graph, you see that the buoyancy of the Indian economy or the robustness of the Indian economy is lifting you up every time. But in a global order about which we've just spoken, is it possible for any one country to remain in isolation and keep telling you, I am growing at 10%, irrespective of whatever is happening in the world? Let's please put ourselves in the context.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you for this very reassuring comment, actually, that you have explained the entire the growth syndrome. The budget, I cannot just stop talking about the budget because the budget just happened 3 weeks ago, gave a big relief to the middle class, much awaited relief. You will remember that almost 5 years ago, you gave such a big relief to the corporate sector also. And there is a sense that the corporate sector is not really coming back with more investment and contributing to the kind of the role that should be playing in an economy which requires more investment. The government had been doing the heavy lifting. Is there a sense that you get that the India Inc. probably needs to be given something more, or some push or some prodding by which they come in and play their role of reviving investment, since the government has done its job pretty well?
I want the corporates to talk about what's, if at all, I'm not even judging it. What is stopping them from moving at the pace in which AK Bhattacharya would want you to move? Because I strongly believe Indian corporate sector is the best judge on investment, commercial assessment of when to put the money, where to put the money, and how much to put. Yes, we would like them to be speedier because all of us think, oh, I've done the job, so should you. I'm not looking at it like that at all. But what I'm missing out, and where I will join company with you, is to, why is the corporate sector not speaking about it? Assume you're not. Tell us why not. Assume you are. Why don't you speak about it? What I'm finding is the question from AK Bhattacharya and his ilk is being heard for the last now 4 years, since 2020. But the answer is not for me to give. Answer either way has to be heard from the industry itself. Tell us why not if you're not doing. And tell us, if you are doing, why should this question remain unanswered? So that's how I would respond. But I'll keep doing my job. I will invest. I will spend on capital expenditure. It is government which realizes that India has to catch up with what's missed out on nearly 50, 60 years. The pace at which your infrastructure, which is the core for your economic development, has to be strengthened.
Okay, I think that's definitely is a very good point you have made, that the India Inc. probably needs to do some answering on this point. Let's move on. You gave an indication in your brief address about the fiscal consolidation program, the debt anchoring. These are all very positive developments. And you also mentioned how probably the states need to play their role in this entire exercise. And it's a fact that the states, there are many states which are not really doing their job well. There are some states which are doing very well. Is there a need for some sort of an institutional framework for getting the states on board and attacking this fiscal question that stares us, the entire economy, and find a way out? Something like, some years ago there was a recommendation from an official committee about some sort of a fiscal council to have states on board. They're talking about a GST council-like body. There are talks about why not have, in the agriculture sector, why not have a kind of a state council, center state council to take on the agricultural reform issue. So what is your overall perspective on this idea of creating a kind of an institutional framework? Because we don't have the planning commission anymore. So there's need for that kind of institutional framework to take the fiscal reform as well as many factor market reforms agenda forward, labor, land, agriculture?
I think there should be an honest engagement with the states.
Okay.
Engagement meaning, you've quoted the example of the GST Council. You think an institutional arrangement would get you the result desired. But even to set up a GST Council, under the previous government prior to Prime Minister Modi government, and even under Prime Minister Modi's government, efforts had to continue going on, and they had to be kept alive for even a GST Council to be brought about. For that, it required nearly, I would think,
absolutely.
from 2010, intensive work had happened. So that is a kind of work you may need if you're looking at an institution. I'm not even looking at an institution. I would think the engagement, first of all, should happen. And economy is something which I ideally like to believe, like the gender question, should not be politicized continuously. All right, you will have elements of economy coming in for vote seeking, for winning an election. But beyond that, is it not a good for any government that if your revenues improve, that there is transparency in your budgeting, that there is a clear understanding that debt is a burden on the future generation? So why wouldn't we want to have an honest conversation about it? And any effort, and I say this with commitment, any effort to misinform the public about how monies or tax devolution happens, as to what goes to the states, any attempt to misinform is a disservice to the nation. Your own people are being wrongly informed when their right is to know the fact. So attempt to misinform, and I strongly think, I'm not shifting any blame to anybody, I strongly think the media, at least on matters related to economy, should have the honest question raised to the right people. There's no good in just being a postman. I heard it from them, so I come to you. I heard it from you, I go to them. Why is it that an objective questioning doesn't happen about things which cannot be tampered with? Why misinform public? And therefore, I would think issues related to economy and honest engagement is an absolute precondition for India's growth.
Thank you. I mean, this point very well taken. I raised that issue also because your budget did talk about kind of a national economic policy framework, wherein you did indicate that how that framework will involve the states and they go in and look into second generation reform, particularly, actually, even you mentioned about land, labor, etc. Now, is that framework something
yes,
in the offing is coming?
Yes, yes.
What is the state coming?
Absolutely. There is a working paper which will be put for discussion. There is something happening on it. So we are going ahead with it. We
Okay.
will have it happen.
Sure. I told you that I will come to the custom tariff. You have, the last two budgets have reduced tariffs in many items. There were about 50 items in the last budget. This budget, another 50 items. So there has been a new trend that we are seeing, that tariffs are being rationalized, reduced in many items. Can you give us a sense, is this exercise a one-off exercise, or is it an ongoing exercise? And are we sort of in a phase where we will undo a little bit of what we started doing from 2017 to 2018, those 2 years?
No, it has been a continuous exercise. Our aim is to completely relook at customs and duties, which are going to, one, be used only as enablers. Duties will have to be enablers. You want more of certain products coming into India because your manufacturing depends on it, we'll certainly look at it from that point of view as an enabler. But as the opposite, if they are not enablers, we certainly want to remove them. Otherwise, for the kind of the new millionaire that India and the world is looking at, and India, if it constantly is looking at itself as we are still only after the British left us, where we have been, and therefore we have to first of all cross the first ladder, we are just not going to be able to make it at all. And therefore, we are very clear that we want to enable Indian manufacturing, for which if there are intermediary or raw products which have to come from somewhere else, we will be enabling their coming into the country.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for this clarification. One question that keeps coming, and you did talk about it just now, about disinvestment, and we understand from you that probably that thing is being revived and we are going to see more disinvestment. Did you also mean privatization?
Well, yes, I thought that was a policy announced in 2021.
And
the budget said about it.
And
the core sectors have been identified, the strategic sectors, where public enterprises will be present. So when I said privatization in 2021 budget, I didn't say that I will shut everything which is in public sector.
Yeah.
But there are public sector presence required where you need them because they are strategic sectors. But even then, nothing stops private sector entering into any domain in India.
Okay, thank you. There has been a remarkable consistency of economic policy thought in terms of deregulation in the last 2 years. You know, economic survey talked about deregulation. The Prime Minister talked about setting up a deregulation commission. Your budget talked about at least 2 frameworks to look at financial sector procedural reforms and non-financial sector reforms. Can you give us a bit of a understanding of what is it, your entire thought process, and how do you want to take it forward? In what way?
You're very well aware that since 2019, probably even before that we have clearly taken upon ourselves to make sure that archaic laws are removed, regulations which have been sitting there as only tools for rent seeking have all been eliminated as much as we could. They are running in thousands. In fact, the archaic laws, you wouldn't believe, I would think, that India had about 1,600 of them till about 2019. So we are removing such. But this announcement in the budget about for financial sector and for non-financial sector is more on the ground that overlapping regulations or regulators who seem to operate in silo, all well-intended, but what falls between the 2 stools never get addressed. So it is in that context that we wanted to make sure that for non-financial sector also, we will have some kind of a oversight to see how this can be cleaned up so that everybody functions as a part of a larger wheel rather than each spoke for itself. There are immense number of examples where because of say regulatory can I overreach? Can I say that?
Sure.
Due to regulatory overreach, you think we have hurt businesses? I don't want to take any one just so that I don't give an impression that I'm against one regulator as opposed to other. We've taken up issues where clearly overreach has gone too far. So such kind of things are the ones which we want to have a group of people looking at it, secretaries, committee, and have stakeholders also talk to us about it so that we can clean that place up. For the financial sector, again, between the various regulators, we needed greater coordination and also greater understanding of how each one is approaching an issue. So that is why it was made as an announcement in the budget. I've had very many good inputs coming, people saying, oh wow, this is the thing, do it fast. But the one reality check I would put there is, this is all central government. Beyond that, for instance, non-financial, pollution control boards exist in every state. So that will be enough for you clean up the stable here, but there in the ground, in the state where action happens, you can have still a similar mirror image of a problem happening. So that is why when I talk about engaging with the states in a far more meaningful fashion, it's not just for fiscal management, it's not just looking at your debt situation, it's also looking at, in the broader sense, wouldn't we be better off as a country if you and the central government, if the states and the central government all look at making it easy for businesses and entrepreneurs to do their work. So it is not a competition between the center and state. It is not as if center wants to impose itself. But today, just as the investment attraction has become a code for every state, can it be also a destination sought after? Like we would say for tourism, everybody wants to go to a particular destination because it's this. Everyone wants to go to a particular destination because that state is a lot more administratively friendly.
That's right.
So I think the ways in which we can nudge the states are only one, and that is nudge.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am, you have been so generous and gracious. That's emboldened me to ask you, would you like to take one or two questions from the floor? Please, if there are any questions from the floor, please identify yourself any questions? Yeah.
Good morning, and thanks for giving me this chance.
Please identify yourself.
I am Rutvij Vora.
Yeah.
I am a guest here, a delegate here. I've been in India working for the last 25 years and trying to see if I can do something on my own going forward. It's been pretty encouraging for me to going forward based on what I've seen in the last 10 years, and I hope I'll be able to take it forward. Ma'am, one simple question to you here. I see that in India there are 4 large areas in which the growth can happen. One is large businesses, one is SMB, one is PSU, one is MNC, FDI. Now, somewhere I see that you have been supporting all of them pretty well, but someone has not started running. I mean, I don't see any of them have really started running from the way it's required across the globe. So anything you think you should do to make a shark in this tank? Should you support one of them so strongly that others slightly feel threatened and start moving fast?
Okay.
Am I clear in my question?
Yeah.
I'm unable to get the question.
Yeah.
Please, could you repeat the question?
Yeah.
And be brief,
very
please,
brief, very
to the
brief.
point.
Yeah, I feel there are 4 growth areas or 4 engines which can grow this country. One is SMB, which is small and medium businesses. One is large corporates. One is large MNCs through FDI. And the 4th one is PSUs. Somewhere I feel all of them have yet to pick up the pace at which you would want them to. Anything that should be done by you, ma'am, which can help one of them run the fastest so that others also pick up?
Okay. I
No,
think
but I
broad-
thought I've sort of addressed this question.
Yeah.
It is for whichever section, as you may identify four, did you call them engines? It is for them to say, look, I am capable of running faster, but this is missing. If they say that it is possible for us, because any solution coming from the government without the input of the sector concerned is always going to be a mismatch. So I would rather have you or the engines that you identified speak to us. Speak to, let's say, the media. I'm quite open.
Thank you. One last question. Yeah.
Hello, I'm here. My name is Dr. Sébastien Foucault. I'm leading in a consultancy in AI here in India and a professor at the university. During your opening remark, you mentioned about the war of talent. India has been in the past 15, 20 years a net exporter of talents abroad. We can see that would happen with the large companies in the US. And I would like to know if there is any incentive that you could propose to foreign talents or Indians abroad to come back to India in the light of, for instance, what happened in China 10 years ago with a program called 10,000 Talents, where they incentivized researchers and entrepreneurs to come back to China. So I wanted to know what are your thoughts in this direction?
I'll take it as a thought to go and work on something.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we...
Can I have last question?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Can I have?
Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am. Prime Minister, myself, Suresh Kumar. I was an ex-banker. And ma'am, like post-COVID, we have noticed that, like, if I talk about 10 years before, our economy was mainly focused upon few of the metro cities. But post-COVID and the way microfinance funding has reached to the Tier 2, Tier 3 cities, we have witnessed a lot of economic growth, especially in Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. I do myself come from Bihar, and I have seen how, like, in last few years, migration of the unorganized laborers have stopped, and people have started doing their own small kind of businesses and the infrastructure growth. So what do you have, like, in coming years, especially for Tier 2 or Tier 3 or Tier 4 cities? And I think, like, future of this country now lies beyond 4 or 5 or 10 metro cities, and that's where we have to play a key role. Yeah.
I think the move is happening from the industry themselves. A lot of, for instance, much talked about the GCCs are themselves moving to Tier 2 cities nowadays. They are no longer sitting with the metropolitan towns or with the IT hubs of India. Similarly, a lot of these one district, one product scheme which came up from the central government and which many states have taken up have also brought in investments. For instance, I'll take North Karnataka today receives a lot of investment for millet processing. North Karnataka, incidentally, is not a water-rich area. It grows a lot of millets, and that year of millets that we had in 2023 has brought in a lot of focus to millet growing areas. Today you have them getting investments for food processing, and big ticket millet processors are going there. Startups are going there as well to see what kind of newer ways in which millets can reach the global market. So I've just taken two random examples, but today, because of the cost competitiveness and with infrastructure already reaching many of these places, internet, optical fiber going there, Tier 2 cities are probably a lot more robust in terms of generating demand and also showing that opportunity lies there for investments. So commercial decisions are being taken to move many of these investments to Tier 2.
Thank you. I think we'll come to the end. No, I think the finance minister has to leave. Unfortunately, we cannot take any questions. Ma'am, thank you very much for being so frank, free, fair, and forthright. Some of the qualities that Business Standard also believes it enjoys. Thank you once again for sparing your time. We really appreciate it. I think I have to present you a small kind of, is it there, memento? Huh? Okay.